I think he's played Trump like a violin so far. He's created this idea that they're mates and that they're equivalent and they can solve all the world's problems together. But it's becoming very clear to Donald Trump that Putin has no other plan other than to subjugate Ukraine. And he's going to make Trump look like a muppet if he continues, and that's not acceptable.
So, Alex, 20 plots foiled, or at least 15 attempts at murder or kidnap against British nationals or UK-based individuals since the beginning of 2022 by Iran.
So it's a problem. The Iranian regime, distinct from the Iranian people, with whom we have no argument, the regime is fighting for its life. It's just lost a war with Israel. It's in a battle with the reformists, and it's using asymmetric techniques, cyber, subversion, assassination, to propagate its agenda, and we've got to stop that. But it is eminently stoppable. They've fired a lot of these shots already. Their cyber capabilities, their proxies are dead. Syria's gone. Hezbollah's on its back. So I acknowledge the significance of what the committee have said about this, but we can deal with it. We just need to show that we're willing to do so.
But it looks like they're using criminal gangs as proxies on the streets of the UK, says a parliamentary report, which will be of great concern to all people who have expressed an alternative view who live here, and Jewish interests and Jewish people here in the UK must feel a sense of threat when they read this report.
Yeah, and we don't like this, and it needs to stop, and we need to call the Iranian regime out. But I think there's a much bigger issue in play here, which is what's going to happen in Iran next. That's the big issue.
And what do you think is going to happen if you say the regime's weaker than it was a year ago?
I think we are in a fascinating position after the American military action. There is a raging debate. Iran is at its all-time weakest between the reformists and the conservatives about who's got the soul of Iran. And we're at an inflection point. And I believe they could decide that now is the time to bargain over their nuclear program with the Americans. And I think that would be a triumph, because the existence of that program has been an existential and appalling threat to the world for years. And there's some prospect of it being sorted out. But we need to be very careful about this. We need to give Iran incentives to trust us. We need to stop talking about regime change. And we need to create the best possible conditions for them to make the right decision. And that time's now.
But I can't see why Tehran would trust us now when they've just been bombed.
Because they lost the war. They would be mad.
Well, we think that the stuff's in the mountains still.
No, they lost the war, the stuff's in the mountains, but they would be mad to try and weaponize it. Their friends Russia and China didn't turn up. There's actually a political majority in Iran, slender, but in favour of regarding the nuclear stuff as a liability and something that should be traded away. And the whole Khamenei maximum resistance thing is at an end. So, of course, they don't like it. I mean, the Shah wanted nuclear weapons, but the reality is the reality. And the Iranian regime is nothing if not pragmatic. They know how to suck it up. So I actually think Trump's onto something here. Military action as an incentive to talking, very risky option, but I think it could work.
I wonder if we should go out by drawing the strands together, because we're sending viewers to bed with a list of things to be concerned about. But there is a fight for ideas, and there does look to be an alignment by President Trump back against Putin. So where would you tell our viewers to see optimism given the news diet we've dished?
No, it's exactly what you just said. Fundamentally, there's a baleful future in front of us, which is a world dominated by strongmen and spheres of influence where alliances break down and its devil take the hindmost. And I think stuff happened in Iran and Ukraine that actually makes that a bit less likely. And what we need to do is soberly make that more likely to happen.
I mean, I'm interested, Alex, that you're saying that you think that Putin has overplayed his hand. I'd be interested to know, because MI6 knows Russia better than anyone else. Vladimir Putin is never going to get an American president who's better disposed to him, because fundamentally Donald Trump accepts the fundamental Russian narrative that Ukraine was the aggressor. So if Vladimir Putin is never going to get a more friendly US president, why do you think he's overplayed his hand?
Well, no, honestly, I'm mystified. I mean, he is an intelligence officer. I think he's played Trump like a violin so far. He's created this idea that they're mates and that they're equivalent and they can solve all the world's problems together. But it's becoming very clear to Donald Trump that Putin has no other plan other than to subjugate Ukraine. And he's going to make Trump look like a muppet if he continues, and that's not acceptable. So actually, I don't have an answer to your question, but the evidence is he is overplaying his hand.
Yes.
And he doesn't have a military solution. We're 3 years in, he's lost 1 million men, and he's got less territory than he did in 22, okay? So Trump is his only answer. And I would agree with you, he's playing it very dangerous here.
Well, the thing is that the other countries of Europe are not briefing what you're briefing. The Danish government has predicted a Russian invasion of a NATO member in 3 to 5 years. The Swedish chief of staff called on citizens to prepare for conflict. Der Spiegel quoted the German defence minister last year as saying we must be ready for war by 2029.
Honestly, I'm conflicted. On the one hand, I couldn't agree more. We've been hopelessly complacent. We've been ridiculous. We've run down our defence forces. We pretended history end. Nonsense. But on the other hand, there's just as pernicious an idea that we can't do anything about this. We don't have to do much. The Russian army has been rubbish. It will take 5 years to reconstitute. Europe is 14 times richer than Russia together. We have just got to get our act together. So I'm kind of between the two. This is eminently doable. But it won't work if we just sit there and look at some fictional peace treaty and decide we can go back to business as usual. Then we've got a problem.
So, Nick, just as I'm asking Sir Alex to pull the strands together, I must ask you as we close to pull the political strands together, because it was a Labour bomb. Attlee wanted the Union Jack on the atom bomb. And now we've got this Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who is facing this international in-tray that looks terrifying. Even Sir Alex is conflicted. So is he going to be defined by how he plays summits like this one today?
Well, a Prime Minister who came to politics through domestic affairs is now being defined by international affairs. And it's very interesting that Jeremy Hunt, the former Chancellor, said the other day that he thinks Keir Starmer has done very well on the international stage, but not so well on the domestic stage. And probably the most significant thing that Keir Starmer did in the last year was get a call through to Donald Trump shortly after the shooting. That is clearly the moment that cemented his relationship with Donald Trump. And from that, an enormous amount has flowed.
Do you think Sir Keir's playing this well?
I think he's
international politics.
He's gone round in circles on the domestic stuff. We all wondered what happened. But on foreign stuff, I think he's played a blinder. I entirely agree. And he's used the pressures that you have described to push Britain in the direction he knows it needs to go anyway. So I think it's been a skillful performance.
And he's done something that Tony Blair wanted to do but never managed to do, which is to build a bridge between the United States and Europe. He has good relations with Emmanuel Macron, good relations with Donald Trump. Tony Blair didn't do that. Do you remember George Bush and Jacques Chirac? All very different.
And also, the King's in play. It looks like the King and his French really have impressed President Macron.
I'm very glad to hear that. That's excellent.
So we say don't weep into the pillow. That it's a fight for ideas. The West has its freedoms, but it does need to play up a bit better. This sort of been your message.
We've got a mojo problem. We can do this.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming.